Stay back! Get your own... Oh, hello, friends. I see you've just come to my beautiful alley to hear about the Forever Winter. I was worried for a moment you were here to steal my garbage. You wouldn't steal my garbage, would you? The Forever Winter is a Grimdark homelessness simulator that's fresh to early access. Early access being the detail to remember here. In this game, the world has already ended. The people who ended it are long since dead, and the remaining militaries continue to fight endlessly under the valiant command of ChatGPT. All that's left for you and your fellow vagrants... Oh fuck, sorry.
Did you just fucking shoot me?
I may have. Is to scavenge live battlefields, hoping to round up enough scrap to supply you and your shantytown without being killed.
I've never seen that.
Oh!
Wait, is that bad guy?
This is a game I've been looking forward to for a while now, and I'd like to walk you through my journey of deciding if I love it or hate it, so that you, the viewer, can develop your very own case of Stockholm Syndrome. The gameplay is broken down into 3 main parts: looting, shooting, and extruding. Looting. Loot. It's what it's all about. I'm not out here running around these wastelands for the gorgeous views and the charming locals. I'm out here picking up $50 in a lighter, and I'm doing it for the love of the game. They call me Ass Eater the way I'm bottom feeding. You are a scavenger. You eat, sleep, and breathe loot. You don't care how terrifying it is out there. You don't care that anyone who sees you will shoot on sight. If it shines and it sells, it's gotta be yours. Compared to most extraction shooters I've played, the loot in this game is actually pretty generous, and it's pretty easy to fill up on medical supplies, ammo, and weapon mods pretty early on in a run. I mean, of course, it's not finding the loot that's the hard part, it's leaving with it. You can find loot either in containers or on corpses, both of which are plentiful. Among the different things you can find in the wastelands, the most important thing you can find is water. Having a healthy water supply is how you upgrade your base and get better vendors to sell to you. But the most important thing that water does is deplete. Your base is entirely inhabited by those women on TikTok who turn their entire personality into converting perfectly good drinking water into a carcinogen. If you fail to maintain your water supply, you will lose your entire stash of supplies and have to start from the beginning. This is definitely one of the game mechanics of all time. Luckily, water isn't actually too hard to come across. And even if it was, we have our methods.
I've got just
Death to the west! In every run we do, we'll be packing heat. The first and most important rule about combat in the early game is, no thank you. Combat should be avoided at all costs. You're not playing an action hero in this game. You're a scav, a vulture, a rat, and that's how you like it. In almost every combat encounter you get into, you'll be outnumbered and outgunned. Not to mention that all it takes is a single gunshot to start alerting nearby groups of enemies. If you get detected and enemy forces open fire on you, you simply run away. Shooting back should be reserved as a last resort. Everyone else on the battlefield is trying to fight the good fight, and look how that goes for them. We are going to do a lot better lurking in the shadows, stealing when no one's looking, and looting the kills of others like the vultures that we are. The main advantage to being a filthy, raving, unhomed individual is that just like in real life, people don't want to look at you. Tanks and mechs know that you can't hurt them and will generally deem you unworthy of their time, making it so that you can loot their battles more or less unscathed. More or less. That being said, if you choose to antagonize them, they'll be happy to oblige you. Smaller units, on the other hand, will absolutely see you as a threat. As far as they're concerned, you're just another guy with a gun trying to rob them of their life, or worse, their booze. Soldiers and drones will shoot you on sight, so they're best avoided. Now, I don't want you thinking that bigger equals safe. This is still the apocalypse, and some of these monstrosities were designed with the sole purpose of spreading terror, and they are damn good at it. Once you get further into the game, you'll end up with better weapons, and fighting will be a lot more viable, but as a new scav, it's best to stick to sneaking around the battlefield and looting crates and enemies who've been killed by another faction. This is the way of the rat, and it serves us well. All that being said, combat is pretty fun. It's got a healthy amount of early access jank, but the fundamentals are there, and the weapons have a nice weight and heft to them that matches the vibe of the game. The enemies aren't tanky, with, well, obvious exceptions. Most human-sized enemies will go down with a good headshot, and even the armor ones aren't too annoying of bullet sponges. You are still absolutely going to spend a lot of time dead, though. Like a lot. The best case scenario is the classic getting shot to death routine. Never gets old. The worst case scenario... Actually, I think we'd all be better off trying not to think about the worst case scenario. The most important part of any run is to actually extract with all the shit you've stolen. Extracting from a map requires only that you reach the designated point and press E, which is of course easier said than done. Some are more or less safe, while others are very much not. The most difficult scenario is when you have a timed extract, where it requires you to not only reach the extract zone, but also survive until the timer runs out. Most of the time, that will not be the case. There's no time limit on runs, meaning you could hypothetically loot to your heart's content, though you'll probably be driven out early due to lack of bullets, storage space, or most likely, blood. If that's not enough to get you on your way, the game will also deploy hunter-killers, to give you that little sense of urgency. Hunter-killers know your location at all times, and will pursue you until you make it to extract or make it to hell. They seem to be triggered kind of randomly. I've had some sent at the start of the runs, whereas others I managed to leave before they even show up. Occasionally, instead of hunter-killers, I've gotten the notification that scramblers have been deployed. Now, I don't know what a scrambler is, and I really don't want to. Vendors are an important part of the game. Every time you die, you lose everything you collected and everything you brought with you. And you'll lose important gear more often than you'll find it. And that, my friend, is where later stage capitalism kicks in. The first casualty of war is innocence, and the last will be the free market. The loot you gather during your runs can be exchanged for currency, which can then be exchanged for goods and services. Why else would we be risking our lives if not for the profit incentive? An essential factor for dealing with vendors is the reputation system. Each vendor has their own respective nationality, and the reputation with that nation affects their prices. The easiest way to increase your rep with a faction is to complete quests for them. This will most of the time be something simple like attack another faction or collect X amount of Y and then turn it in for cash, rep, and maybe even some water or a gun. Killing members of a faction will lower your reputation, which is obviously very difficult to avoid. I've personally chosen to pledge my allegiance to Eurasia, or as I like to call it, Greater China. I know they got old Xi Jinping hooked up on life support somewhere looking like the Emperor of Mankind. And I'm trying to get that CCP, Chinese Communist payday. Our construction quality, impeccable. Tiananmen Square, nothing happened. Taiwan, doesn't sound like a country to me. Yeah, I'm getting nothing from this. Divine Chairman Jinping, praise be upon him. Please stop deploying social credit zombies directly onto my position. As I said earlier, the game is still in early access and is not without its flaws. First and foremost, the game has a lag problem. I don't have the strongest PC in the world, but this is not a problem I have often. Because of how many enemies are simulated at once, enemies further away from you will switch to a lower resolution animation set. A very good idea. The only thing is, that distance isn't actually that far away. Something I talked about earlier is water. I do not like the water mechanic. It really sucks that all of your progress is held hostage by a timer. You better not go on a work trip or get into a different game, you son of a bitch, or the shotgun ammo's gonna get it. Combat is fun, but the hitboxes can be really inconsistent. Enemies can also spawn out of anywhere, and they especially like to do this behind you. I've heard the phrase coming out of the woodworks, but this is ridiculous. The game's menu system also needs some work. When you first join the game, you'll walk around the hub world finding where you can add water, switch your character, and find the different vendors. The only thing you can't actually find in-game is how to start a match. That is because you can only do it by hitting escape and going to the ready lobby in the menu. Another minor complaint is there's no inventory option besides looking at your loadout. Not at all game-breaking, but in a game about scavenging for loot, sometimes a man just wants to bask in the glow of all the shit he's stolen. Now, as annoying as some of these issues can be, the good thing about it being in early access is that they're probably going to be fixed. The team has already shown a lot of dedication to improving the game. In fact, this list was originally bigger, but during the making of this video and the writing of this script, I've had to cross them off because they've been resolved. I'm actually not worried about most of these issues being a long-running problem with the game, but I did want to bring them up just for transparency. Moving from the cons to the pros, the biggest thing this game needed to nail was the world building. All the marketing for this game really pushes that you're not the main character. You're on the sidelines just hoping to scrape by, and I can happily say that they nailed it. When walking around, you can see all the other factions patrolling, getting into gunfights, and there's also these giant mechs that you know you don't have a shot in hell against of beating in a gunfight. And that can really enforce the idea that you're like an ant that can get crushed at any second. It's really important in a game where your player is not your main character, that the world can feel alive without them. And all that constant fighting going on keeps the enemies from feeling like just another obstacle to sneak past. The playable characters are also really well designed, and their unique skills help them feel very distinct from one another. Fucking shaman gang, baby. The experience system is also very unique. You can gain experience to spend on skills up to a point before needing to level up. Doing so resets your skills and your XP, but this time your XP pool gets a higher limit. Hypothetically, this sounds annoying, but for whatever reason, I like it. Overall, I thoroughly enjoy this game, and I'm glad I got it early when it was on sale. It's very fun in its current state, and I know the developers are going to continue to polish it and add new things to the game. There was a lot of disturbing shit in the trailers, and still plenty of areas that haven't been unlocked yet. And I look forward to the nightmare fuel, and more importantly, cash, to come. Now if you'll excuse me, I must once again risk my life for the glory of Eurasia. Until next time, friends.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion.